For 7 long years, the Midianites ruled over Israel with cruelty and fear. They came like swarms of locusts, taking every grain, every animal, every harvest. The people of Israel hid in caves and mountains, afraid to face the enemy. Their land, once rich with life, was now silent under oppression. In those days, a young man named Gideon threshed wheat in secret inside a winepress, hiding from the Midianites who would steal whatever they found. Fear had become a way of life, but that day, something divine stirred in the shadows. As Gideon worked, a voice broke through the silence, calm yet powerful. "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." Gideon looked up in disbelief. "Mighty man?" He felt nothing of the sort. Covered in dust, trembling, he answered, "My Lord, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all the miracles our fathers told us about when they said the Lord brought us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of Midian." The messenger's eyes held a light that no man could bear. "Go in this might of yours," the voice said, "and you shall save Israel from the hand of Midian." "Have I not sent you?" Gideon's heart pounded. "How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." Then came the answer that silenced every doubt. "Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man." Still trembling, Gideon whispered, "If I have found favor in your sight, give me a sign that it is truly you who speak to me." He hurried away, prepared a young goat and unleavened bread, and brought them before the divine messenger beneath the great tree. "Lay them on this rock," the angel commanded, "and pour out the broth." Gideon obeyed, and as soon as the staff touched the offering, fire burst from the rock and consumed it completely. When Gideon looked again, the angel was gone. Fear gripped him, and he fell to his knees. "Alas, Lord God, for I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the voice of God came to him once more. "Peace be with you, Gideon. Do not fear. You shall not die, overwhelmed." Gideon built an altar there and named it, "The Lord is Peace." That very night the Lord spoke again, saying, "Take your father's bull and tear down the altar of Baal. Cut down the wooden image beside it, and build an altar to the Lord your God on this rock." Gideon's fear did not disappear, but obedience burned stronger than fear. He gathered 10 of his servants and, under the cover of darkness, did as the Lord commanded. When morning came, the men of the city saw that the altar of Baal had been torn down and the idol destroyed. Furious, they demanded that Joash bring out his son to be killed. But Joash stood before them and said, "Will you plead for Baal? If he is truly a god, let him plead for himself because his altar has been torn down." From that day forward, Gideon was called Jerubbaal, meaning, "Let Baal fight against him." The man who once hid in fear had now defied false gods. And though the Midianite armies were gathering in the valleys below, Gideon's heart, once weak and doubtful, began to stir with courage. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and for the first time, the man who had called himself the least of his family began to believe the words once spoken to him. "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." The Midianites had gathered their armies once again, their tents covering the valley like an endless sea. Every tribe of Israel trembled, yet the Spirit of the Lord rested upon Gideon. For the first time, courage outweighed fear. He blew the trumpet, calling his people to rise. Warriors came from every direction, Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. Israel was ready for war, but the Lord had other plans. That night Gideon prayed, "If you will truly save Israel by my hand, as you've said, give me a sign. I will place a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and the ground is dry, then I will know you will deliver Israel." The next morning, he wrung out the fleece and filled a bowl with water, yet the ground was dry. But still he hesitated. "Do not be angry with me, Lord. Let me test once more. This time let the fleece be dry and the ground be wet." And God did so that night. Gideon knew then, God had spoken, and his promise was certain. When dawn came, Gideon looked upon his army of 32,000 men, but the Lord said, "You have too many. If I give you victory, Israel will claim it was their strength that saved them." Gideon stood before the soldiers and cried out, "Whoever is fearful may turn back now." 22,000 left, their hearts not strong enough for the battle. 10,000 remained. Still the Lord said, "The people are too many. Bring them to the water, and I will test them there." Down by the stream, some men knelt and drank like beasts, while others scooped the water with their hands and lapped it carefully. Then God said, "By the 300 who lapped water with their hands, I will deliver Israel. Let the rest return to their homes." Gideon watched as thousands walked away, leaving only 300 men behind. 300 against a vast army. Yet he no longer questioned. Faith had replaced fear. That night the Lord spoke again. "Arise, go down against the camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. But if you are afraid, go down with your servant Purah, and listen to what they say." Gideon and Purah crept down through the darkness until they reached the edge of the enemy camp. Below them thousands of fires burned. The Midianite army stretched across the valley, as countless as the sand by the sea. Hidden in the shadows, Gideon overheard two soldiers speaking. One said, "I had a dream. A loaf of barley bread tumbled into our camp and struck a tent so hard it collapsed." His companion replied, "This can be nothing but the sword of Gideon, son of Joash. God has given Midian into his hand." Gideon fell to his knees, overcome with awe and relief. God had confirmed the victory. He returned to his men and said with newfound strength, "Arise! The Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into our hands." Gideon divided his 300 men into 3 companies and placed a trumpet in every hand, along with empty pitchers that concealed burning torches. The night was still. The valley below them shimmered with the faint glow of the Midianite fires. Gideon's voice was steady now, no longer the voice of a frightened farmer, but of a man who believed. "Watch me and do as I do. When I blow my trumpet, you blow yours on every side of the camp and shout, 'The sword of the Lord and of Gideon.'" When the middle watch began and the guards changed shifts, Gideon gave the signal. The blast of trumpets ripped through the darkness. The pitchers shattered, releasing blazing torches into the night sky. 300 voices cried out in unison, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon!" Confusion swept through the valley. The Midianites rose in panic, their hearts seized by terror. In the chaos, they turned their swords against one another. The mighty army fled, their cries echoing through the hills as Gideon's men stood firm, watching the power of God unfold. The enemy ran toward the Jordan River, pursued by men from Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh who had joined the chase. Messengers were sent throughout Ephraim, calling them to seize the river crossings. The princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb were captured and slain at the very places they had once used to oppress Israel. Their heads were brought to Gideon as a sign that the Lord had fulfilled his promise. When the dust of battle settled, Gideon and his 300 men crossed the Jordan, weary yet relentless. Hungry and exhausted, they asked the men of Succoth for bread, but the leaders mocked them, saying, "Do you already have the kings of Midian in your hands, that we should feed your army?" Gideon's eyes hardened. "When the Lord delivers them to me," he said, "I will return and punish you with thorns and briars." He went on to Penuel, but they too refused. With the Lord's favor, Gideon pressed on. The 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, were camped in security with 15,000 men remaining, all that was left of an army of 120,000. Gideon struck swiftly, catching them by surprise. The Midianite forces fell apart under his attack, and the kings were captured alive. When Gideon returned, he punished the men of Succoth, as he had vowed, and tore down the tower of Penuel for their arrogance. Standing before the captured kings, Gideon demanded, "What kind of men were those you killed at Tabor?" They answered, "They were men like you, each one resembling the son of a king." A shadow crossed Gideon's face. "They were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had spared them, I would not take your lives." And with his own sword, Gideon executed them and took the golden ornaments from their camels' necks. In triumph, the people of Israel gathered around him, saying, "Rule over us, you and your sons after you, for you have delivered us from the hand of Midian." But Gideon shook his head. "I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over Israel." Yet in his heart pride quietly took root. He asked the people for the gold earrings from their plunder, and they gladly gave them. From this gold, Gideon made an ephod, a sacred garment, and placed it in his city of Ophrah. But Israel began to worship it, and the symbol of victory became a snare. For 40 years, the land had peace during Gideon's lifetime. He had many sons and lived to an old age, but after he died, Israel once again forgot the Lord who had delivered them. They turned to false gods, and the people no longer remembered the house of Gideon, the man who had risked everything to free them. In the silence that followed his death, Gideon's story remained a whisper among the faithful, a reminder that victory is not found in strength or numbers, but in faith and obedience. And even the mightiest warrior must remember that glory belongs to God alone. After Gideon's death, peace still lingered over Israel for a time, like the last glow of sunset before the night. But peace without remembrance is a fragile thing. The people slowly turned back to idols, their hearts forgetting the God who had delivered them through 300 men and one faithful servant. The altar Gideon had built became a monument few visited. The golden effort he had forged now drew crowds that bowed not to God, but to gold. Among Gideon's many sons was Abimelech, born to a concubine from Shechem. Ambitious, proud, and filled with envy of his father's former glory, he grew restless under the shadow of Gideon's name. "Why should 70 sons rule over Israel?" he asked the people of Shechem. "Choose one man to lead you, and let it be me, your own blood." The men of Shechem, easily swayed and hungry for power, agreed. With silver taken from the temple of Baal-berith, they crowned Abimelech king. And to secure his throne, Abimelech did the unthinkable. He ordered the death of his own brothers. One by one, Gideon's sons were slain upon a single stone. Only one escaped, Jotham, the youngest. From the top of Mount Gerizim, his voice rang out across the valley like thunder. "Listen to me, men of Shechem, and may God listen to you. Once the trees went out to anoint a king over them. They said to the olive tree, 'Reign over us.' But the olive tree said, 'Shall I leave my oil by which men are honored to go rule over trees?' Then the trees said to the thorn bush, 'Come, reign over us.' And the thorn bush said, 'If in truth you anoint me king, come and take shelter in my shade. But if not, fire shall come from the thorn bush and consume the cedars of Lebanon.' The people laughed at his parable, not understanding. But prophecy has a way of fulfilling itself. In time, Abimelech's pride turned his allies against him. The same people who had made him king rose in rebellion. Cities burned, towers fell, and finally, during the siege of Thebez, Abimelech's own arrogance became his downfall. A woman, standing atop the city wall, dropped a millstone upon his head. Mortally wounded, Abimelech fell to his knees and called his armor-bearer, saying, "Draw your sword and kill me, so they will not say a woman slew me." And so he died, a man destroyed not by enemies, but by his own pride. In the end, Israel learned again that victory is not inherited, and faith cannot be passed down like gold or crowns. Gideon's legacy was both a triumph and a warning that every generation must choose between the God who delivers and the pride that destroys.